My name is Brady Deaton from the Department of Food, Agriculture, and Resource Economics.
And I'm Steve Duff, Chief Economist at the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, and Rural Affairs.
How you feeling, Steve?
I'm feeling great, Brady. Thank you.
All right. So here's what I got. I got to give you two numbers. One's for Ontario and one's for Canada. The first one's for Ontario, 48,346. The second one is for Canada, 189,874. What am I talking about?
Well, Brady, I think you're talking about the number of farms in Ontario or Canada. That's the number that we in government and industry would use typically, and it's used and coming from the Census of Agriculture. The 2021 Census of Agriculture, that's our most recent one. It's done every 5 years, administered by Statistics Canada. And effectively, it's the inventory, the tally, the count of land, labor, and capital, and the number of farms in this country.
So this definition changes over time, though. I remember something like from 1991 to 1996, they included Christmas trees in that count, and that expanded, in a sense, the number of farms. This year, 2021, the census farm changed slightly. Give me your thoughts on that.
We're both agricultural economists, right?
That's
We're
right.
working with numbers, but definitions matter, right? And Stats Canada has a whole ag division devoted to agriculture, just like a lot of the major countries. And one of the things they're doing with the agricultural census, and it goes all the way back into the 1800s, is trying to provide a measure of how we can compare the sector and examine the sector over time. To your point, the definition and what it means to be a farm in this country or any other country in the world has without question changed over time. And at some level, the definition has tried to adjust to that purpose. The census definition in 2021 of a census farm was modified a bit to be more explicit about effectively a farm being a business in Canada that's filing income tax as a farm, whether that's income or expense or both. And that, to your point, has basically been the practical definition going back to the 90s. Effectively, if you were a farm and filing income tax as a farm, you're going to get a census form. You're going to complete the census form. The definition's changed a little bit to try to deal with a world where we're going to reducing burden on farmers, trying to get data from all different sources. Stats Canada calls that their Ag Zero project. And the definition has changed to that extent. But for the most part, it's practically the same group of businesses.
All right, and we're going to provide you links to everything. So when you're debating with your friends and neighbors a particular subject, you can kind of quickly look it up. So this is going to be this census farm is going to be underscore measures of things like farm area for the census. And so here's a couple of quick facts. The total farm area for census farms in Ontario is roughly 12 million acres, 11,766,000 to be exact. And the total farm area for all of Canada, which is roughly 6.3% of Canada's land area, is 153 million approximately acres of farmland. These have changed over time, and these are not the only measure. So in general, the total farmland area, let's just move to Ontario, has declined, though particular aspects, important aspects of them, like cropland, have remained relatively constant. Can you just riff on that a little bit if you want, Steve?
Sure. Like, as you mentioned, so total farm area, that's all of the land actively used by census farms in Ontario or Canada. And so that represents all of the land on any particular farm, whether that's woodlands, swamp, the area around the farm building and house, including land and pasture, whether it's good pasture from a use point of view, whether it's rough pasture, whether it's land and hay, or all of the other crops we produce, even under a greenhouse. You know, you mentioned about sort of the complexity there. We produce a lot of crops, over 200 different commodities in Ontario. And so the census reflects sort of the summation of all of that. But within that context, the land that is being most productively used, the land that is generating the most production, that's what we define and the census defines as land and crops, as you mentioned. That number's been pretty flat over time. If you go out in Ontario, if you go all the way back into the 1800s, we've been anywhere between about 10 and 9 million acres in land and crops all through that period. And so that's the land that kind of drives the production of the sector.
And maybe one additional point that's worth discussing a little bit is it's not the only definition of farmland. I mean, for other purposes, there are other groups, Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, which we will provide you a link to, might define agriculture land a bit different, and that might lead to somewhat different conclusions. Let's discuss that a little bit.
Right. So again, the census of agriculture is based on the farm, the business, and it's then defining the land used by that business. The Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, MPAC, as you mentioned, its responsibility is putting a value for property tax purposes to all land in this province. And a big chunk of that land, as you mentioned, is farmland. So land that has been or has been used in agriculture or is being used in agriculture for agricultural purposes under the act that governs MPAC must be categorized as farmland and then assessed accordingly. And so the MPAC data reflects basically a set of land that's either actively used right now in farming or has been more recently used in farming. And that total number tends to be a fair bit higher than the amount of land that's actively farmed by businesses, which is a reflection of some of the changing areas of the province and the fact that there is idle land out there that has agricultural capacity but isn't currently used.
When I hear that, I think, oh, that's good news. There's more land out there. If we need more land, maybe some of this idle land can be drawn into, say, crops in the future if prices reflect that and the businesses want to expand.
That is a reality, right? However, there are certain areas of the province where, the land is idle, and some of that's for economic reasons, where maybe over time the land hasn't been as productive and it's been more difficult for farms to be profitable, et cetera. We often tend to look at that in terms of land quality, and prime agricultural land, class 1s through 3, that's very concentrated throughout the province. And so that's part of the discussion. The ability to transition some of that land is there definitely. It's really a function of sort of the individual decisions that businesses make to bring that land either into production or into other uses.
And I guess to some extent, like, what's it idling for? It could be idling for development in like a couple of years. So that's a question which we don't have data to here, but some of the links that we're going to provide the listener with, they can examine additional granularity for counties in Ontario. And that's available on OMAFA's website, and we'll provide a link to it.
Yes, correct.
I think we have focused in on what is a farm and identified two different purposes for understanding it: the census, looking at the health of agriculture, the MPAC trying to assess farmland. Is there anything you think we should add on to that?
No, at this stage, I think that's good. I think, again, like you said, it's about taking facts and putting context around them so people can come up with their own opinions and beliefs about what is a very complicated issue. And that's why, as ag economists, we're here.
So I think this is great, Steve. It was great talking to you.
Thanks, Brady.